Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we saw the quarterfinals of the Aimchess Rapid, which is part of the Champions Chess Tour. Now Magnus Carlsen was paired up against Arjun Erigaisi, and in the first game he had a tough fight. He was struggling for a long time, but eventually managed to escape with a draw after Arjun missed some wins. But I just really wanted to share the games that he played after that. So in round number 2, he played with white pieces and opened the game up with the move knight f3. Arjun responded with the move d5 and the move g3. This is known as the ready opening. c5 by Arjun, bishop g2 and knight f6. Short castles and g6. And this is actually also what I played against Alexander Grishuk in our Chess.com Global Championship match. I believe in that match Grishuk played the move c4, but Magnus plays the move d4, and with this he plays a bit of a reversed Grunfeld. Let's have a very quick look what I'm talking about. But if white plays d4, black can play knight f6, g6. And if white plays this line with g3, black can play the move d5. Now, if we have a look at the position in the game, white is in extra tempo because he has already castled. Alright, so Arjun takes and plays bishop g7, knight b3 by Magnus, and he goes knight to c3, attacking this pawn over here. e6 and now e4. White wants to break up the center and also open up the scope for his bishop. Oh, bishop like this. Alright, so d4 by Arjun, e5 by Magnus, attacking the knight on f6. Now, if you take here, white will recapture either with the queen or with the knight, and white will have a pretty good position, again, because his bishop is so active. So Arjun takes on c3, now Magnus takes on f6, and Arjun recaptures with the bishop. Now Magnus takes on c3, and castles. This was the first move where Arjun spent a significant amount of time. But from here on out, Magnus plays very well. He plays the move queen f3, putting pressure on the bishop over here and defending his pawn on c3. Enter bishop g7, bishop a3. Now note that black has a better pawn structure because white has the double pawns and an isolated pawn on a3. But this bishop on a3 is very active. The bishop on g2 is very active as well. He can put his rooks on b1 and d1, where they will exert a lot of pressure on the black position. Now Arjun plays rook e8, stepping out of the way with his rook, and Magnus plays rook b1, activating the rook. Queen f6, and now Magnus takes and plays rook fd1, an excellent move, activating the rook and sacrificing this pawn over here. And after Arjun takes, Magnus plays the move knight to c5. Now white has a lot of pressure, but black also has another problem. How are you going to develop this bishop on c8? There's no clear way. So Arjun plays bishop f6 and gives back the pawn on b7, but now Magnus has a very powerful bishop pair and a passed c-pawn. So after knight e4, he goes c4, rook ac8, and he plays bishop f1. A bit of a passive move, but you want to keep the c-pawn on the board, and Arjun goes rook e8, threatening knight f3, so Magnus goes king g2. And how Magnus displays the power of the bishop pair here is really impressive, so it would all encourage you to take close attention. Alright, a5 by Arjun, c5 by white, rook b8 and rook b6. Another great move. The idea is that if black takes, should take, and now this b-pawn will always be very strong. So king g7, bishop a6 by Magnus, another great move. He wants to go bishop b7 and potentially c6. e5 by Arjun, rook db1. And he's asking this rook, what is he doing, right? If he takes, then this b-pawn becomes extremely strong, supported by the two bishops. So Arjun goes knight c6. You cannot take this knight because you hang your rook on b1. So Magnus played a rook 1 b5, making sure that this rook is defended. So now he is starting to capture the knight. Takes, e4 by Arjun, and bishop c5. Another nice move by Magnus, bring the bishop into the game. Rook to d2 and now b7. This b-pawn again is so strong. Knight b8 by Arjun, hitting the bishop on a6, and now Magnus takes this pawn. And bishop on c5 also does a good job of stopping bishop d4, which would allow black to create a counterplay. Rook d7 by Arjun, and Magnus plays bishop c4, takes, and bishop d5. And again, look at these bishops. And the bishop pair is really so powerful because both bishops control a color complex. This bishop controls the white squares, and this bishop controls the dark squares, or I should say the light squares. Right, rook d7, now Magnus captures a pawn, and he also has this pawn over here. And Arjun plays the move bishop d4. And here a very instructive moment. Very often what you want to do when you're fighting against a bishop pair is trade off one of the bishops, because again, your opponent controls both color complexes, but Magnus understands this and keeps the bishop on the board with bishop b4. Rook a7, takes, and now he sets his a pawn in motion, d4, king f6, and bishop d5. Another nice move, making sure that the black king is tied to the defense of the f7 pawn. Knight a6, attacking the bishop, bishop d6, and bishop b6 by Arjun. Stopping a5 by now, but then Magnus goes bishop c4, attacking the knight, knight c7, and bishop b4. He's preparing the advance of his a-pawn, which looks unstoppable at this point. Bishop d4, a5, and again, what is black going to do? This king is stuck over here. White is controlling the entire board because he has the bishop here. h5, a6, knight e8, and now Magnus goes f4, another nice move. He's taking away the e5 square for the king and also paving the way for his own king to come up the board. Knight c7, bishop d6, attacking the knight. Now if you go back, there will be bishop b8, followed by a7, and there's nothing black can do. So Arjun went knight a8, then I can bishop d5, and after knight b6, a7, and black is losing because there's nothing you can do about a8 queen. You're gonna lose at least a knight, maybe even more if white attacks it. So Arjun resigned. A very nice game by Magnus, where he truly displayed the power of the bishop pair. And now let's move on to the next game, which was also a great game by Magnus. He was playing with the black pieces in this game. So let's flip the board. And Arjun opened the game with the move 1e4. And Magnus responded with the Taimanov defense, which rises after knight c6, knight c3, and queen c7. Now there's a lot of things white can do. In the first game, Arjun probably surprised Magnus a little bit with this rare move knight cb5. And again, he had a winning position, but unfortunately for Arjun, he wasn't able to finish it off. But in this game, Arjun goes for the move g3, a6, bishop g2, knight f6, and short castles. And here Magnus proceeds with knight takes d4 and bishop c5, attacking the queen, bishop f4, a nice intermezzo, attacking black's queen on c7. Now if black were to take this endgame, is quite favorable for white, because the dark squares are a little bit weak, and white can follow up with a quick rook at d1. So Magnus played d6, queen at d2, and h6. Alright, so he wants to make sure that white does not have this move bishop g5. Rook a1, attacking the pawn on d6, and Magnus goes e5, attacking the bishop, bishop e3. And here, I believe the main move had always been the move bishop e6, and white takes and plays knight d5, and I believe black takes and plays queen e6. And here, the argument is, okay, white has an extra pawn, but it is blockaded, so can white really prove an advantage here? Not sure. But Magnus goes for another line. He takes the bishop on e3. And here the main move had always been the move pawn takes e3, to keep the attack on the pawn on d6, and black doesn't have an easy way to defend it. King e7, for example, would be a big mistake. Feel free to pause your video. The move here for white is move rook takes f6, eliminating the knight on f6, because then either way white gets a fork on the king and the queen, and white wins the game. Right, same if black takes with the king, still this fork. Alright, so after pawn takes, black generally ends up sacrificing the pawn with something like bishop e6, takes, maybe rook c8, and I believe Fabiano Caruana won a game here with the black piece against Arjun Tari in Norway chess last year. But on the other hand, white also shouldn't be worse, I think. But Arjun recaptures with the queen, and this allows Magnus time to regroup his pieces. He goes bishop e6, rook d2, and king e7. King will always do a nice job defending this pawn over here. He can bring in the rooks. Now Arjun should have played the move f4 here, and I wonder what Magnus had in mind. Let's say he goes here, white can follow with something like knight d5. It takes. White does get quite a bit of pressure on this pawn on e5. You cannot go king f8, because white takes, and maybe even rook takes f6. Although black seems to be doing fine here, but after, let's say, rook f5, white does seem to be having a pretty strong initiative. Alright, but Arjun goes rook fd1. Pretty logical, right? Attacking this pawn on d6. Magnus goes rook hd8 to defend. f4, and now rook ac8. And at first glance, the position is fairly symmetrical, right? But black has the advantage that he has a light squared bishop, white also has one, but his pawns are on the dark squares, and white's pawn over here is on a light square. So for that reason, I'm not sure if the move f5 was a good move by Arjun, putting another pawn on a light square, bishop c4, king h1, and now Magnus goes queen c5. He realizes that he will always have a very pleasant advantage in the endgame. This pawn on e4 is always a weakness. He has a lot of pressure along the c-file. So Arjun played queen e1, keeping the queens on the board. b5 by Magnus, another great move, gaining space on the queen side. Rook c1, b4, knight d1, and now very greedy, he takes the pawn on a2. But what are you going to do? White cannot play the move b3, because you just take it. And the c pawn is pinned, because you lose the rook. So black is able to grab this pawn and get away with it. Arjun played c4, trying to close down the bishop. You should not take because of b3. And now you do lose the bishop, or knight e3 is also very good. So Magnus played bishop b3. He wants to bring this bishop back into the game. Knight e3, bishop a4, rook a1, bishop c6, and rook takes a6. So white does regain the pawn, but now Magnus plays rook a8, and after takes. Look at this position. Black has very firm pressure on the pawn on e4. His queen on c5 can never be dislodged from the square, and he just controls all the dark squares. The white king over here never has an easy place to go to. Black is the only open file on the board, so black is a great position. And Arjun played the move knight at d5, and here Magnus made the smart trade. He gave up his bishop for the knight, but now again, look at this bishop on g2. It's fairly dead, and there's not much white can do. So rook c8 by Magnus, bringing his rook back to the c file, bishop f3, and now b3, another great move. He's putting his pawn on a light square, which intuitively would feel like a mistake, but he's preparing the move queen to b4, followed by rook to c2, and after this trade he will have a very strong c-pawn. And otherwise, if white does not trade, what is he going to do about the attack on his rook? Right, black also gets pressure on the pawn on b2, so already the position is very tough for Arjun. King g2, queen to b4, queen e3, and rook c2. Again, if white takes, he's just going to be done for. This c-pawn is too strong, this e-pawn is still very weak. So Arjun played rook e2, queen c4, threatening to take and take. So Arjun went here, and now queen d4, another fantastic move by Magnus. He's attacking this pawn over here. You cannot take here because you hang your rook and checkmate. So white is forced to take, but now Magnus recaptures and he gets to pass d-pawn. And also, after king of 1, he showed another very nice plan. He played the move knight to d7. Because the knight is headed for either c5 or e5, where it will have a great outpost and black will have full control over the position. Bishop d1 by Arjun, and now Magnus played the move d3. You cannot take the rook because as the pawn takes, you are going to get a new queen. So Arjun played king e1 with the idea of taking, and then king d2. Magnus played knight c5, attacking this pawn, and you still cannot take, because if you take, black will take, and after king d2, there is knight b3, and you promote the pawn. Right, so Arjun played f6, but Magnus just took, rook to d2. The reason why he played the move f6 is because he didn't want to allow Magnus to go king f6 and e5. That would be total domination. So he played f6 and then rook d2. But now Magnus paved the way for his king. He played the move f5, giving up a pawn. So now he could go king f6, g4, and king e5. And again, when Magnus plays games like these, it's just a gift to the chess world, right? This is just pure art. Arjun played the move h4, trying to create some counterplay, and Magnus just goes king f4, g5, and king e3. Again, white is completely dominated. The rook on d2 is trapped. Again, we know we cannot take because these two black pawns become too strong. So Arjun played g6, trying to create some counterplay, but now Magnus took, and after gf, he played rook f2. Closing down the mating net around the white king. He's going to go d2 on the next move, and there's absolutely nothing white can do. A true masterpiece by Magnus, also in the previous game. And I just really hope you all enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one.